So once we have the histogram, the next thing we want to be able to do is we want to be able to measure the central tendency of that histogram, or the central tendency of the frequency distribution. There are three ways of doing that. One of those ways is the mean, another is the median, and the last one will be the mode. And we're going to look at each one of those in turn with some different ways of representing the data. So the arithmetic mean is the most widely used by laymen to measure the center of the frequency distribution. If we think of our data points as being x1, x2, x3, all the way up to xn, then the arithmetic mean is simply written as x bar, that's the symbol for it. We add up all our data points, x1 through xn, and then divide by the total number of data points. This can be a little bit cumbersome, so there's a notation out there to help you understand that you need to add everything up called summation notation. And if you see that big sigma x, that means you need to add up the things that are represented by x, which in this case are our data values. So sigma x divided by n is exactly the same as saying x1, x2, x3 all the way up to xn divided by n. Let's take a look at the data that we were just looking at, our third data points. And if we want to go ahead and calculate out the arithmetic mean, all we have to do is add up all the x values, which is 2,565, and then divide that by the total number of data points, 30. When we do that, we get 85.5. Here I am at the class website, and what I've done is I've clicked on the Multimedia Library button down on the left. You'll see that one of the entries here is the Graphing Calculator tutorial, and if we click on that, that'll open up a new window. I'm going to maximize that. And if I click on the Graphing Calculator tutorial there, it's going to add a little applet that I can now go ahead and click on the appropriate entry here to learn how to enter data and define the mean. So to do that, let's click on Basic Statistics and Probability. And what we want to do is go down to Calculating One Variable Statistics. That's going to load in a little tutorial on that. And what this does is it explains how to enter your data into a list, and then how to calculate out the median or the mean, any of the things that we're going to be interested in. Or there's a kind of a capture-all thing that you can do, which is called OneVerStats, that's going to give you all the values that we need for this section and the one afterwards. Often, instead of having all of the different data values, we'll have the data values that are grouped by frequency. So if the data is grouped, the method of calculating the mean needs to be modified a little bit. So now what we're going to have is we're going to have a bunch of data values, say x1, x2, x3, but corresponding to those, we're going to have the frequencies also. So we'll know that there's a certain data value, say 22, that occurs 6 times, and another data value like 34 that occurs 4 times. When you want to calculate the mean in this situation, we have to multiply the data value by the frequency, and then add those all up, and then divide by the total number of data points, which is just the sum of all the different frequencies. So for instance, suppose I administer an exam and record the following data. The score of 65 occurred 4 times. The score of 78 occurred 5 times. And the score of 92 occurred 1 time. To find the mean, I'm going to have to multiply those scores times the frequencies, add them all up, and then divide by the total number of data values, which in this case is 10, or 4 plus 5 plus 1. So I take 65 times 4, plus 78 times 5, plus 92 times 1, and then divide it by 10. The sum on top is 742. When I divide that by 10, I get a mean of 74.2. If my data had been grouped into intervals, we'd even have to modify this strategy a little bit more. So now if I said from 60 to 69 there were 4 values, from 70 to 79 there was 5, and from 90 to 99 there was 1, I'm going to have to do the same thing I did before, but now I don't know what the specific data values are. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a representative value from each one of these intervals, and then I'm going to use that with the frequencies to calculate out the mean. So from 60 to 69, I'm going to pick the midpoint of that interval, or the mean of that interval, which is 64.5. From 70 to 79, I'm going to use the representative data value 74.5. And from 90 to 99, I'm going to pick the representative data value 94.5. When I go ahead and work out with the formula that we had before, I'm going to say that that representative data value appears 4 times. Because I don't know any better, I'm just picking a representative value, so 64.5 times 4, 74.5 times 5, and 94.5 times 1. And again, we're dividing by 10 because the sum of the frequencies is 10. This gives me 72.5 divided by 10. So using those representative data values instead of the actual data values, I get a slightly different answer. I get 72.5. If you were doing this on your calculator, instead of entering in the actual data values into that first column, you'd go ahead and use the representative values.